This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Hello and welcome to Voices Unhindered. I'm Crystal Jenkinson. On this show, I give a unique perspective and listening ear to voices that often go unheard. I want everyone to know that you are not alone and that your voice and story matters. On today's episode of Voices Unhindered, I speak with local puppeteer Jacim Thompson about his journey into and through being an adopted child, overcoming hardships and child abuse. Could you tell me a little bit about your adoptive journey?
Yeah, so I have a slightly interesting story. When my mum went out, back in the 80s, they ended up coming around when she'd gone out, but she'd left me on the table and SIFs came around. They used to enter the house, people left their doors open back, and they actually came and they took me from her and ended up taking me to a foster home without her knowledge. And then after a few months of her not being able to see me, they ended up letting her have visits.
Wait, they just came in your house and took you just because your mum left you on the table? Maybe
there was a couple of incidents earlier, but they were nothing. Yeah. My mum was just anxious, By today's standards, it would be pretty messed up. But I think that my family on the outskirts of Oamaru, they had a bit of notorious family members for fighting and all kinds of...
Your family?
Yeah, my family.
Yeah, so they already had like an eye on you guys?
I was only a baby, but yeah, they had an eye on us for sure. And so they took me because she had run out of nappies, so she went to the dairy and just left me on the table, which is, probably not the best advice, but she was mentally unwell.
Do you know what she was diagnosed with?
So she had agoraphobia, like fear of, outside and people and spaces, and she used to go out and sort of freak out. Like, we'd go to Dunedin Library. It would be all too much for her, and then she'd go into the toilet, but for an hour or so. When I got it first taken from SIFs and put into foster care, there was a guy who, a nice family who lived on a farm, and they allowed my mum to come visit, have visitation. But then one day on my birthday, after, a few times of this, she came and she said, "Can I take Jacim to go have a play at the playground?" And they're like, "Oh, we're not supposed to." SIF said, to keep us watching you, but they allowed it. So then my mum, she ordered a taxi from Oamaru all the way to Dunedin, got my auntie in Dunedin to pay for it. Then eventually the police caught up to her and they put her into Cherry Farm Mental Institution in Dunedin. And I went and visited her there.
What conclusion did they come to have to put her into the mental institution?
You probably needed lower level, some talk and some counselling,
Yeah.
But back in Cherry Farm, which is notorious to the point that it got shut down, they put her through the electric shock therapy. They gave her, I remember the pills were massive. Doesn't necessarily mean they were strong, but I remember my mum getting given these pills, and then she was a zombie after that. When I visited there, actually I enjoyed it for a while because I'd been watching Jim Carrey, like funny comedy type pulling faces and stuff like that, and so I thought, wow, these adults are hilarious. And I thought they were just, they are just the same as us, just with, some troubles.
Are you talking about the mental institution?
Inside the mental institution.
Oh, yeah. Were you allowed inside?
I had to visit. Yeah, it was a 50-minute drive out of Dunedin. And one day I had one of those, like a spring gun that will shoot on the fridge, a suction cap thing. But it was too strong, so I'd have to hand it to adults to pull back for me. It's probably one of those 80s toys that would be banned now because it'll take your eye out kind of thing. There would be those people like that movie Awakenings, and they're just catatonic state. In a
trance kind of.
In a trance, yeah. I got told, never hand this gun to the patients with this certain clothing on because they're patients and they might do something bad. And so there was this one guy and he had plain clothes on. And so I thought, this guy must be the trustworthy one. He's like one of those visitor, normal people. I didn't have much clue of this, and I was 4. I handed it to this guy, and then he turned to one of those catatonic people and point blank suction capped, kind of funny, suction capped the catatonic person, and it woke them up. But then the catatonic person grabbed me to choke me, and then so did the person that I handed the gun to.
Yeah, that's
and I remember
terrible.
this massive Samoan, awesome turned security guard came in and then grabbed me out away from both of them. And that was the day I realised, whoa,
traumatic.
A little kid shouldn't be in this mental institution.
Yeah, I know, because when I was a kid, my own biological mum went into the mental institution, and it wasn't a place that I felt comfortable in.
Oh.
Yeah, because I grew up with my grandparents. Well, so they were like my parents. So I know what it's like to have I wanted to ask more about your adoptive parents, and were they happy for you to see your mother, biological mum, and how was your relationship with your mum growing up, your biological mum?
So they were pretty supportive to let me see her, but they always noticed, so she would try and say things to turn me against them. For example, when I was only about 6, she said, I feel bad, I feel like I'm telling on her or whatever, but she was mentally unwell. But she said, if you call them Mum and Dad rather than Linda and Rex, then I won't love you anymore. I was like,
no, that's not.
Parents were like, you're adopted now, you're part of the family, you can, call us Mum and Dad. And I was like...
Did it make you feel confused as a kid, when you'd hear different things from both sides?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It was...
And how did you, settle things in your own mind about,
I don't think I did. I used to play too much Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, yeah.
And on video game, right? But I had a dream of my mother, and I also watched The Wizard of Oz. So my mother, as the Wicked Witch of the West, even though she's lovely, she was chasing me, but she would chase me onto Sonic the Hedgehog spikes, and I'd lose my rings and then go, and wake up every time. And this was a reoccurring dream for probably about 7 years. That was my nightmare. And then after time, once I grew up, I actually felt sorry for her. When I was in my 30s, a nurse told me that she was raped and no one believed her when she was younger, and many other factors in her life, and very strong Catholic upbringing and everything.
Do you mind going into a bit of the Catholic upbringing that you've heard your mother had, as well as what happened during her becoming sexually abused?
My uncle did it to her. It was almost like, how dare you talk bad about your uncle like that, because he was a very religious man. And
do you think it was like a ritual?
You mean, did it happen regularly, or do you think it was
a ritual as in something that was part of what he believed that God might want him to do?
I don't know well enough about that. The focus and the change from goodness and the treating others as you want to be treated and forgiveness and all that was warped by the Catholic Church over hundreds of years. So the literal biggest case of Stockholm Syndrome in all of human history is what the Romans who killed Jesus did over time to collect wealth and do the opposite of what he said.
Have you seen a pattern in your family with abuse, or did you see it in the Catholic Church when you were growing up?
I wouldn't be aware enough to see that at that time, but I know that I had some problems with LSD and different drugs, and I had some great times with LSD as well, but no, I had some problems with drugs, and then I ended up feeling quite crazy and trying to strive for a bigger purpose. So I actually did go to this random fly-by-night Catholic church, and it seemed okay, and they were kind of including everybody and all that, until one day I remember the guy said, all the guys come with us, and we're going to have a break over the summer, and we want to discuss the temptations that might come to you. And so then this guy proceeded to go, and he went into the description of several different clothing types, like he was just telling us fetishes, or, hot clothing for women, whatever. And me and this other 21-year-old guy were looking at each other going, what the heck? I don't think I'm coming back here after Sunday, after
It's good
next
that
summer.
you kind of picked up that there was something strange about what was happening. It's good that you had that discernment.
It's an incredible show, if you ever watch it, called Righteous Gemstones. It's hilarious, and it's about fake people using religion to make money. Like,
Didn't Jesus say you'll know them by their fruit, like what they produce, and also their words?
Problem is, what they do is they warp that, so they say you can know because of their fruit, and so then they'll go, oh, we've got much fruit, no, that's not what it meant. And there's another one, but they forget the passage that says it's easier for a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. No, forget that part. We don't want to talk about
Yeah, they idolize money. Do you know of any things that your mum went through during time in the Catholic Church? Did she talk about any of her experiences there that may have been traumatic?
It was very much like if you have sex outside of wedlock, like she had a baby outside of wedlock. So that was also between my uncle, and then my family was very angry at her that she didn't know the father.
Wait, so do you mind me asking who was your dad?
My dad, I don't know him, but he used to hit my mum quite badly, and then
You've never met him?
I've never met him, and then she broke up with him to get away, and then my family hassled her for not going through with, you've got to keep up a good marriage, like what are you doing, and,
for not going back to the person who abused her.
Yeah. And
that's because they were part of the Catholic Church and wanted to keep up their image, right, with other people?
A little bit, yeah. And
that's terrible.
Also, you can't really see it that much anymore, but he used to put stub cigarettes out on me when I was in the cot.
How do you feel about you and your mum's relationship now? Do you guys talk, or are you just standing?
So my mum, I don't talk to her as much as I should, but she's doing way better. She's in a rest home. Once Cherry Farm shut down, she got put into South Dunedin. There was more schizophrenic people, way crazier around her. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say crazier. Way more troubled around her, which made her worse if she had baseline calm people. But also Cherry Farm got shut down it was a bit of a Nurse Ratched kind of situation.
Kind of like Sunnyside had a bad name, didn't it? How would you say that knowing you were adopted shaped your identity and self-worth? How did you build your identity? Where did you get it from?
So I used to be really, really shy. When I first got put into the orphanage in Dunedin, which had actual nuns, like Sister Act type nuns, and they were all nice, but the head nun was very, very mean. She was just like, just yelling at little kids. That freaked me out. It was a beautiful building in Dunedin. It had big Oamaru stone pillars, incredible building. But I would go into a closet size, like a room, and it had a set of drawers with nothing in it and a little bed. And I was in there at 4.5 years old. I go, where's my mum? And they go, oh, don't worry about that. Go in this room. And then I was in this room waiting. And then it's go to sleep, so I just lay on this bed. I had no toys, nothing. And then eventually people would come, like big strangers, and they'll knock on the door, and they'll go, Jacim. I'll go, huh? I'll open the door, and there's these two adults that I'd never seen. And they go, oh, he's cute, but we wanted someone younger, like a baby age. And they go, oh, okay. And then they go, that's good. Go on back in. And I'll go back in. They'll close the door. I'll be like, what? Where's my mum? Eventually, this one counsellor guy, Tony, I can't remember his last name. I wish I remembered his last name. Incredible human. He saw, what the hell? This kid hasn't got any toys, nothing, and he's wondering where his mum is. And he bought me a quite big, I don't know how big it is because I was very small, but I could sit on the back of it. It was like a wooden truck, and I could push along, and one reading book, like a golden book. And I was like, this is the best. So what that did for me is make me appreciate everything that I get, from now on out, because it's like, whoa. So I've met many different types of human from being adopted. And I think I can talk to people from, tattooed face gang members to people who have been in politics.
And were you curious about your biological parents? And did you want to know about your grandparents or what they were like?
It was hard to get much information out of my mum because she didn't really want to talk about it. And then I asked around other family members, and then I found out I'm lucky I got adopted, because that family that I had, one's dead from a heroin overdose, one's in jail, one's the local town drunk, one was sniffing glue. I'm not sure what he'll be. And so
you were the one that was adopted, right?
I managed to get away. And
Wow.
yeah, not saying I'm not got my problems. All of my crazy family on my mum's side, I've got a cousin named Dina who's about the same age as me, and she's very clever, and she's like a legal assistant, very smart, very kind. But her brother is one of the ones in and out of jail who threatens to come back, smash up the whole house, and has done in the past, arrested, like mental illness and schizophrenia and stuff.
So mental illness has run through your mum's family, like, as you've just said, drugs and mental illness kind of.
It's sprinted through my mum's family hard, yeah.
And how did you overcome, like, your drug addictions, like with LSD?
I actually had the shakes from taking, lots of different hallucinogenics and stuff. But I found this martial art called Wing Chun. It was pretty cool. And just doing martial art, it has some parts where you have to hold your hands steady. And eventually, after doing this and learning some different things and meeting people, I stopped having the shakes.
My dad did martial arts. He did judo.
Yeah, judo's excellent. Yeah.
He was like, I don't know, like second in the South Island, he said, or something like that. But he said he like had to stop because he had this badass headache and he had like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, his neck was probably like, it's really hard on your neck and joints.
Back to your childhood. Who as a child had the most influence over you? Like, who do you remember being like someone you looked up to? And
my mum was amazing because she is a very good painter. Sorry, my adopted mum.
You're talking about your adopted mum.
Yeah, sorry, my adopted mum.
So before you were talking about your biological mum, and now
my biological mum.
So you call them both mum, kind of?
I do call them both.
Even though your mum told you not to call your adopted mum.
Now I do, because I told them, I was like, okay, this is too much. I've never confronted my birth mum about it. I remember one time she had a meltdown in the library, one of her 1 hour sessions where she'll go hide in the toilet, and I'll be waiting outside the toilet, and this would happen regularly. But I remember there was this David Bain sweater type guy, and he was like, oh, hey, do you like candy, kind of literally the classic.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, come out, I've got some, out here, sort of thing. And then the librarian, who, because we'd go there regularly, the librarian goes, hey, don't go with him, he's a bad man. This is like what they used to talk about in the 80s, they say, oh, they wouldn't say, it's a pedophile, and they'd just be like, oh, he's a mischievous uncle, like, stay back from that guy. So I was like, oh, there's dangers out there. And then I realized at that moment, I think I was only like 7 or so, I was like, hold on, my mum is not quite right.
How much time did you spend with your biological mum and then your adopted mum? Like, what was, the times? Was it back and forth? Or?
From about 4, when I got taken by my mum, and then she drove to Dunedin. About 4.5, I got put in that orphanage, and then around 5, I got finally fostered out to the people that became my adopted. I would go from about 5, 6, 7, 8 onwards. I would go back and forth from the different houses or the mental institution to visit my mum.
Oh, yeah. And this was helped by your adoptive parents, like, assisted you to see her. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would sometimes get a free shuttle out there to go. It was paid for and all that, which was pretty cool.
And did you like visiting your mum, or was it something that you felt like you had to do?
I didn't mind it until that time I got choked by the guy.
Yeah.
And then one other time, there was 2 other crazy incidents, like insane, but one is hilarious to me that I would love to see in a movie scene. And so the first part was there was a snowstorm in the 50-minute drive between Cherry Farm and Dunedin, and so I had to stay there overnight. And this was not funny, but there was people, their drugs had worn off, their sedatives had worn off, and they were going, and screaming. And I had a little clown toy that my awesome auntie had made for me, and I was just hanging on to that. And then the last time was there was a massive hangi, you know, how they're getting the flame up before they let it go down to ember and stuff. And there was these two guys, if you've ever seen the movie Thelma and Louise, where they're like, let's drive off the cliff together, those two women, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, these two guys that were going around in the wheelchair, really sad. 500 people at this hangi of all the like patients and their families and stuff, and the flames were going up. And this one guy was saying, "Oh, if I do it, will you go with me?" And then he's like, "Oh," the second guy was like, "Yeah, I guess, okay." And then, so this guy, he wheels himself into the fiery pit and starts getting burnt real badly, like actual catch on fire.
Really?
And they put him out in front of me, and I was about 7 at that time.
So traumatic.
And then, okay, this is where it gets funny. To me, years later, it was funny because when that guy went in the fire pit, the whole fire kind of went on him. And then, so now there's like little bits of embers left, like, you know, if you lifted the one flaming log out of the fire or something, basically. And then the second guy really, really delayed. Oh, I guess I have to follow through with my word. And then he wheeled himself really slowly and then tilted and softly tipped into the embers and was like, ow, like only getting slight cigarette burns compared to this guy who was actually really badly burnt. To me, in some sort of comical way, years later, at 16, after thinking, hold on, that mental institution was pretty messed up, but I cracked up laughing at that guy's like, yeah, I'll go with you. Oh, one guy badly burnt, one guy like, oh, hey, he was lying in the fire pit going, hey, who's going to help me? And they're all dealing with like putting out a guy right now, you know. It was, yeah. So I told that counsellor, Tony, that, and he goes, whoa, what the heck? This all happened to you? And he goes, oh, you don't have to keep visiting if you don't want to. And then at about...
Did you feel the need to address anything, like you said, your mum, you found it hard to get information out of her about your dad and things like that. Did you feel the need to like keep asking or find stuff out?
For a while, I looked up his name and it was an Italian name. So I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah, you look a bit Italian. I think you do look a bit ethnic.
I was like, whoa, what the heck? Anyway, something.
That's cool.
And then, but when people, they've lived their whole life a certain way, then they find out they're 0.4% African and they're like, hey, mate, or like Jamaican, they start changing that. I'm like, no, calm down. I'm not going to start throwing pizzas up. I do like cooking though, but...
If you're just tuning in, I am speaking with Jacim Thompson on Voices Unhindered about his journey into and through being an adopted child, overcoming hardships and experiencing child abuse. How did you see your upbringing shape your perspective about your present and future relationships and children that you may have?
It made me think about a lot how that counsellor Tony changed my life just by giving me a book and a little truck. Even it might be a colourful piece of paper that's not even worth much, but you made it into origami for a kid, and it changes everything because it's not even the thing, it's the gesture that, hey, somebody cares about you. I don't cry, even sometimes at funerals, but on a very silly movie about some kid who is poor and then they get helped out, or like an Instagram video of a homeless person getting a shower and fed by somebody, and then I like, oh, like, I get real sad. And
what's that book again? By Charles Dickens? Is it Oliver Cromwell?
Oliver Twist.
Yeah, Oliver Twist, that one. Did you like that?
Oh my God. Actually,
sounds like you.
It was like, now the one that got me was Annie, the orphan.
Oh, yes, I liked that movie growing up as well. And then there's like Matilda, but that's not really. She was adopted by Miss Honey or something.
That's right. Matilda is so good.
And did you see yourself like in those movies as those characters? Or like you could relate to them?
At first, and then I was like, hold on. Your adopted family are really nice, even though every family has their problems. Grow the F up. And You can only ride victimhood for so long before you've got to do something. Otherwise, it's kind of like, But I always think about the most extreme cases, like people in Gaza or Africa or somewhere thinking, oh, my life's so bad.
Being grateful,
Being grateful, that's the word. I could have said that in one word instead of rambling, but yeah, all right.
Did you struggle to bond with others or create intimacy, like in relationships growing up?
I did feel like
or trust
weirdly lying. I lie a lot in my life, or lied a lot in my life, and I probably still tell little white lies and stuff like that, but I don't lie like I used to. And I lied a lot in my life because it used to get me. So it started when I remember, like I said, those people coming up and saying, we like this kid, he's cute, but we would rather someone younger, like a baby. And so then I remembered, like, I have to change, I have to appeal to people.
Yeah.
And so then next time I'm trying to be like a performing puppy in the SPCA kind of thing. I didn't want to be left behind, so I would lie in certain ways in life to try and, because I felt alone, so I can't exactly explain it. I had this thought, but I used to lie because it was advantageous to me, and sometimes the lies were related to like, feel sorry for me, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, like you felt like you had to prove, like pretend that you're someone you're not, like to fit in, or like prove yourself, kind of.
Yeah, because you don't know who you are, so you're you think, am I this family, or am I with my mum's family? So I didn't know. But then the things that my adoptive family taught me were really good, and some not so good. My dad used to drink quite a lot and all that, but I found out later he went to Vietnam and stuff, so he ended up in Cambodia, mine defusal, and he saw all kinds of messed up things over there.
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD. Yeah. He used to wake up in the night screaming until I was about...
This is your adopted dad, eh?
Yeah, until later, and then eventually he kind of stopped, but I thought he was just a bad sleeper. He was interesting because this is why when people dismiss people as conspiracy theorists straight away, without any... like they just hear that term and by default that means you're a crazy person. This example of the Kiwi and Australian soldiers where my dad went, they walked through the Agent Orange sprayed. It's a chemical that... So the Vietnamese, Viet Cong, they were very clever at hiding and amongst the jungle. So the Americans, they sprayed this chemical to kill all the trees. And then so they hid underground anyway. But the Aussies and Kiwis got lied to by the American army. They said, you can walk through this, no problem. And it gave them all, like, their kids had birth defects, they got cancers and all that, got very sick. And in 1971, they had a lawsuit. Actually, my dad's friend started it. He had a cheese factory in Oamaru. He was like a millionaire back in the 80s and that, which was, big money. He had like a couple of million. He was like, wow, this rich guy. But he basically put all of his money to the point his wife left him because she obviously only liked him for his money or something, I don't know. And then he ended up suing because he was dying of cancer anyway. So he ended up forming an ANZAC organization that sued the Americans for lying to us Kiwis and Aussies. And then 1971 it started. And my auntie had in the paper, these guys suing the American military are just lazy soldiers, kooks, and conspiracy theorists. And so then years later, after 15 years of lawsuit, in 1986, finally they got paid out. And it was proven that the American military was lying. But during those years, it was rough, like, you liars, And
your dad went through that, eh? He had to walk
and
through.
imagine how many more times people were so cocky about, like, this guy, he's lying. Like the potential of the laboratory leak or the Hunter Biden laptop or the, No, it's just a conspiracy. Oh, is it really? Here's some evidence. Yeah. So I feel like the people who think everything is a conspiracy are wrong, but the people who think nothing is ever a conspiracy are ignorant of history and corporate greed.
Yeah. Looking back, is there anything you wish someone would have told you as a child?
No, I wish I had listened. They told me heaps of good advice, but I didn't listen. Yeah.
Is this your adopted parents you were talking about, or other adults?
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing, I wish my mum had talked more about my dad. But then when I found out that he used to hit her so badly, I didn't need to know him after finding that out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you not want to dig any deeper after, finding that out? Have you forgiven him? Or do you just kind of feel bitterness towards him still?
I don't really think about him.
Yeah.
Except for, apparently he had a real cool mullet with curly hair, so I'm like, oh yeah. But besides that, I don't... when I think of him, I don't have good thoughts, but...
Do you have any memories of him at all? Like you said, the cigarette, but you heard about that as a child, or do you remember that?
I do remember scrambling under a table because he was smashing stuff and hitting my mum, and I remember hiding under a table, and there was a guy with, a big curly mullet, and I talked to my mum only a couple of years ago about, is this a real memory, or was I used to have this dream, and she goes, oh no, you remember that. And it was like the day my dad was hitting her, sort of thing. So, but vaguely I was like, hey, he looks pretty cool. I was like...
You thought he looked cool?
Yeah, he looked cool. Not during the time he was hitting her, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
From looking up, I'm like, oh, cool.
Not like you want to be like him.
Like the Fonz, he had like a leather jacket on and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Hey. No.
So you don't know where he is now?
No, I don't know, yeah.
And he knows who you are, right?
I don't.
And what was your life like before puppeteering?
I used to do a lot of 3D animation, and I still model 3D, and most of my puppets are 3D made. And should I grab one and?
Yeah. Do you mind if we just finish this first?
Oh, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I used to do a lot of 3D animation, and it was very cool. My friend's a professional at Weta Workshop, Lord of the Rings, Blade Runner, Avatar, high-level stuff,
Where do you see it going, your business in the future?
None of your business. No, just kidding. I have ideas that I want to get better at making it more of a show with even some electronics added, doing it on stage at places, eventually getting funnier.
Yeah.
Trying to have more of a storyline, some characters.
Yeah, do you have storylines when you do your shows? Where you kind of just
Not so much, I ad-lib. Yeah. It's almost like a stand-up comedian that can only do crowd work when people walk past. But eventually I'll start to... I'm literally 1 year in, only about 5 days ago. I've literally only done it 1 year. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, so once, maybe 10 years, I'll be good.
It seems like you've been doing it for ages. I don't know why. It just looks like you've been doing it for a while.
It felt like some kind of natural on the spectrum stuff kicked in when I started doing puppeteering. I loved it, yeah.
So it's like a hobby, but you see it going places as well? You've got ideas about where you want it to go? Yeah,
I make heaps of different art, statues and sculptures inside of 3D print them, add little grass and make, crazy creatures. But they just sit there on a shelf. But when you make a puppet, you can really do that detail and add hair and do all the stuff. But then you can start to use it and see how it moves. So once you finish making it, then you start playing with it. So it's a very cool art form for sure. And you can say random stuff at people on the little puppet toilet while you're in the city, yeah.
How does entertaining others, especially children, make you feel?
Oh, man, kids are the best. I mean, I've seen them run past and then just stop and go, oh, what the heck? Looking so confused. What is that? Because a lot of it's screens and PlayStations and all this these days. So to see a kind of organically moving character, they're like, what the heck? So it's actually a 5,000-year-old art form. Oh. I was like, how? No way, 5,000. So I looked it up, and it was like Eastern Europe, France, and back to India, China, and then ancient Egypt is the oldest one. And they have like a guy, a rock man with rope. So technically it's 5,000-year-old art form. And yeah, so I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
And what's some of the feedback you've had from like parents and children?
It's quite cool because I've seen people from huge gang members who look like they could, break a brick in half, being like, oh, bro, and the little kid comes out in them, to like some very conservative looking person. And then, people from China, India, it's international. And it's like, whoa, what the heck is this? Hey, and some people get mesmerized. Some people look like, oh, get that thing the heck away from me. But I'd say 90% of people seem to love it. Yeah, the reactions are great.
Thank you for listening to Voices Unhindered. It's great hearing from my listeners. Reach out with questions and comments through Insta or Facebook. Just search for Voices Unhindered. I'm interested to know what other topics and voices you'd like me to bring on the show. Join me every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. on Plains FM 96.9. You can find past episodes at plainsfm.org.nz and subscribe to Voices Unhindered on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to never miss an episode.